What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next video in the series of changing the head gasket in the Honda. Today I'm going to try to get a big portion of the work done. I'd like to get the head on and get most of it put back together, if at all possible. I have a lot of work to do still with the ARP head studs and everything, but we'll see if we can put a good sized dent in it today. I think what I'm going to do for starters is I want to try to set up the timing on the motor correctly, and I have to change the front balance shaft seal. I changed it when I did the timing belt, but it's leaking still, so I put oil dye in it and I was able to actually see where it's leaking from. So I'm going to try to change the seal again. I'm going to take a look at the surface on the block and also the surface on the balance shaft itself, because if it's scored, then it's probably just going to leak forever. So hopefully I didn't score it the last time I put the seal in. It's a bit more of an amateur then, but it is what it is. We'll see what kind of shape it's in. So I want to change that, and I'll need to change the cam seal after I get that in. So I have quite a bit of stuff to do, but yeah, I'm going to start off by trying to time the engine. I'll see if I can get you guys a good look under there, but every single part has its own timing marks. The front balance shaft, because this F22 engine has balance shafts, and they rotate and they try to keep the engine in balance with itself, because the weight of the crankshaft can kind of throw off the balance and make the car shake. So they have these balance shafts that throw the weight in the opposite direction at the same time the crank is throwing, just to kind of balance it out. So this car actually has two balance shafts, so it's sort of complicated, but the front balance shaft has its own timing mark. That's very simple. But the back balance shaft, it has its own timing mark, but it's only on once every 3 revolutions. So that's something that you kind of just have to figure out. A lot of research into this kind of stuff. But basically, there's an access port on the back of the engine block, and so if you undo the bolt back there, it's like a, I don't know, 6x100 or something like that. If you undo the bolt with a washer, you can stick a screwdriver in there. And when you turn that rear balance shaft, once the screwdriver goes into the slot, that's how you know that you're in time correctly with that rear balance shaft. And that's how you set up the balance shafts with the crank. You know, you have to have the crank at TDC as well. So difficult process, but as long as you have all your timing marks correct, it's not too bad. And then we move into actual timing belt, putting it on the water pump, on the cam gear, and also on the crank. So all those things. The water pump doesn't have timing marks, but the crank and the cam do. So we'll have to do that as well, and then tension the timing belt. So that's basically a timing belt job right there, and I'm just doing it again. But yeah, I'm gonna get to this, setting up the correct timing marks on these pulleys here, and gears rather. So I'm over here on the driver's side of the engine block, which is the front of the engine, and I noticed that in the past I had changed this balance shaft seal, and it was now leaking again. So I want to change this again. So the procedure for changing this seal, it's kind of difficult because there's not a lot of room in there. But I'm going to take a punch, sharpen it to a point, and try to tap on it with a hammer, give myself a little pin right in the center of the seal between where the shaft and the actual engine block is. And then I'm going to take a drill, a right angle drill with a tiny drill bit on it, and I'm going to actually drill that into the seal, being careful not to touch the block or the shaft. And then I'm going to screw a little screw into it and try to pull that out with pliers. So it's kind of difficult because there's not a lot of room, but I'm going to give it my best shot here. We got to change the seal so we fix the oil leak. So now that I've got all my valves in, my next step is going to be to actually put the camshaft in the head, and then I'll throw the rocker arm assembly on top of the camshaft. First thing though, I'm going to go ahead and clean the cam. It's hiding over here, but I'm going to take this out, hit it with a little bit of brake clean, wipe it down with a clean rag, and then I'm going to lube it up with assembly lubricant, and I'm going to lube up all these journals here, and then I'm going to drop the cam in the slot, and then lube up the journals on the bottom side of the rocker arm assembly as well, and put it down on top, and then just get everything hand tight. I'll torque everything once the head is in the car, because it'll be much easier to torque everything once it's in the car. Alright, so we're going to lube up the journals. You want to go ahead? You just want...
And with this?
No, the journals.
I don't want to put this over here. Space.
Alright, go ahead. Lube up the journals.
Can we just pour it on?
Yeah, just a little bit. I'll show you one. So just like that, we're going to do each one. That's a little much, but it's totally fine. More than enough is better than not enough. So we're going to get a little on each of the journals here.
I'm bad at this.
You can't be bad at pouring oil on journals. Alright, so then we're just going to take it and wipe it around like this with our fingers, just to make sure we got the journals nice and coated, so that when you first start the car, you don't have a dry startup, because dry startups cause wear, and we don't want to cause any unnecessary wear on anything. Yep. Okay, so now that we got that like that, what we're going to do is lube up the camshaft. Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it like this, and I'm just going to dump this assembly lube all over the camshaft like that. And I'm just going to work it with my hands here. I'll hold that in. Thank you. Yep. And we're just going to work the whole camshaft, make sure it's all nice and oiled up.
Greasy.
Yep. Okay. So now that we got it all oiled up, we're going to go ahead and put it in place. Okay. That's where the camshaft rides. You can see it spins very freely, minimal effort. Yeah. Very easy. Nice. So. Yeah, I got it. Alright, so we are all set there. So now what we're going to do is turn this rocker arm assembly over, and we're going to start to lubricate the journals on the bottom of that. And then we'll be all set to hand tighten everything. So we did get the entire rocker arm assembly placed on here, and we just hand tightened everything down. It was really fun, right, Naomi?
Yes.
Yeah, she had a great time. So we're all set. We are ready. We're ready to torque this thing down once it's in the car. I'm going to go through now and put our couple of sensors that we have here in the side. We got the engine coolant temperature sensor and also the coolant sender for the gauge.
Send it.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to send it to the gauge. So I'm going to put, I think, there's an O-ring that comes on here, but it's kind of messed up since I already screwed this in before. So I think I'm going to put a little bit of GMS or engine sealant on here first, and then thread it in here, tighten it down really good, and then that goes over on this side, and we're gonna tighten that guy too. So we're gonna put both of those sensors in so they're easier to do now rather than later. And there's a few other things we got to touch up on the head. There's a couple of studs I got to put in for the valve cover, and yeah, other than that, I mean, we're pretty much ready to put this on the car. So we just have the rest of the stuff to do on the car itself, like run the water pipe and stuff like that. So I'm going to start doing that next. So you can see right here, I did get the intake in. I went and tightened all the bolts on it, and I put it in. I was able to connect the hoses in the back, as well as the two 12s that are underneath that hold that little wiring harness onto the bottom of the intake. Kind of a pain, but I think I have it tucked up out of the way enough for me to get the head on. I guess we'll see once I go to put the head on if it's out of the way enough. If not, have somebody help me move it while I throw the cylinder head on. So right now I'm going to begin, I guess, putting Loctite on my studs and threading them in, and then I'm going to put the head gasket down on top of that, and then I'll put the head on, and then I got to kind of work quickly before the Loctite sets up to throw all of the nuts on top of the studs inside the head and torque them down in 3 steps. We're going to go 30 foot-pounds in the torque sequence, and then 60 foot-pounds, and then 90 foot-pounds. And I'm going to start, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I think that's the torque sequence. I'm going to look it up to make sure, but pretty sure that's how it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and get started getting all my stuff together, like my Loctite and studs and everything. So I've got my first head stud here. I'm going to go ahead and get my Loctite. just give it, you know, that might even be too much. But yeah, we're just gonna give it some, and then I'm gonna put it in its slot. This is the one longest one. There's one that's really long, and that's the one that goes right in the middle and the back. And right here, I have an Allen key I'm going to use to just go down with this. It's hand tight. I'm just going to do this by hand just in case I feel any binding or anything like that. I want to feel it. All in all, this feels pretty good. It would be quicker to go by hand. There we go. Okay. They say hand tight, but you know, a little snug will be okay. And so now we're going to move on to doing the rest of them. I'm just going to go ahead and Loctite them all. Do them one by one.
Já viu rico namorar pobre?
So we got all of our studs Loctited and hand tightened, and so now what we're going to do is put our cylinder head gasket in place. Amy's going to do the honors. Yep. You gotta line it up with all of our studs here. Yep, you put it in the oil hole. There we go. You got it. Nice. So this is a multi-layer steel gasket. So just gonna be careful. Put it down nice and flat. That looks pretty good to me. Gasket looks nice and new.
Oh,
I like it. All right, so.
I like it like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna lower the head down onto this bad guy here, this bad boy, and then we're gonna torque it. So let me get the head. So I've got all of my assembly fastener lubricant on my studs and everything. I'm going to add a little bit more in the nut of each one. And this will just make sure that our torque spec is correct. Because you want the torque spec to be on, so that it holds the intended amount of force down on your head gasket. So, like I said, 3 stages in the torque sequence, and we should be all set. So I did look up the torque spec and as well as the torque sequence, and it's different from the loosening sequence, so I had it wrong before. This is 1, this is 2, this one right here is 3, and then this one is 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to do 30 on all 10 of those, and then we're going to crank up the torque wrench to 60 foot-pounds. We're going to do the whole sequence again, and then we're going to go to 90 foot-pounds and do the whole sequence again. So these are going to be really tight, and we're going to do it all in sequence so that we evenly distribute the force on the head gasket. So we're going to start our first one right here, and we're just going to go ahead and you tightening till the torque wrench gives us the signal.
Is it 30?
And at 30 foot-pounds, it'll give us our beep. So then we move to 2. Right, you can go a little over 30, it's fine. We got lots more to torque. Bam, 30. You know, the next one is right here. Yep. Just remember the studs are basically straight up and down. So like this is perfect.
What do I think first?
Yeah, just like that. And 5 is right here.
Não, e tu? Também não. Jeito de rica, né não? Por quê? Ah, sei lá, pelo cabelo. Se for, qual o problema? Problema? Já viu rico namorar pobre?
So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I think that's where I'm going to cap it off just for this video. But stay tuned for the next one, which I'm making right now. We're just going to try to finish some things up here, and hopefully we can get this thing running today or tomorrow. But yeah, everything's pretty much all together. I threw on the upper hose that I think I cut too short. I might get a new hose coming just because I'm worried if the engine torques it might pull it off. But got the hose clamps pretty tight, so we should be good. But yeah, the head is on. I'm just gonna start torquing the rocker and assembly and everything. But yeah, you'll see that in the next video. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching, everybody.